Hi guys, this is George back here with another video, and welcome to the final episode of Top 10s 2020, where today I'm going to be breaking down my top 10 roller coasters. I've done my top 10 favourite roller coasters in the UK, I've done my top 10 bucket list roller coasters, I've done all sorts of other top 10s this year, but now it is time for my top 10 roller coasters that I've ever ridden. I have ridden 172 different roller coasters, so breaking all of those up into a list of 10 was very difficult. I've ridden so many incredible coasters, and these are my 10 favourites. Before we get into this, I do just want to say this is my opinion. Your opinion may be completely different to mine, and if you don't agree with me, leave in the comments down below what you would put in that spot if you don't agree. Like, leave in the comments below what your number one coaster is if you don't share the same number one coaster as me, for example. But here we go, let's get straight into the final episode of Top 10s 2020, and one of the final videos to be uploaded in 2020. In fact, today, as of the day this is uploading, it's the 31st of December as of recording and uploading. There's going to be 4 videos uploaded today. One was uploaded at about 12:15 last night, and then of course there's going to be 3 more coming. There's going to be 2 more coming after this. There's coaster reviews and the 2020 season highlights. So let's get into the video. So then guys, number 10 is Phoenix at Toverland, a B&M wing coaster that opened in 2018. This is my favourite B&M wing coaster. It's the best themed wing coaster I've been on, and it's my favourite B&M wing coaster. It might be a very short coaster. Phoenix is a very short coaster. However, I think it's a brilliant coaster. There's 3 inversions on this ride, and the airtime on this coaster, there is an airtime hill on the coaster. It's a brilliant element. As well as that, a lot of people don't like B&M wing coasters because they find them a bit forceless. Well, Phoenix, of course, it's a pretty intense roller coaster, and it's definitely the most intense B&M wing coaster I've been on. It is a pretty intense one. It's more intense than most other B&Ms that I've ridden. I've ridden, this is more intense than most of the B&M inverts that I've ridden, and they're known for being pretty intense. This is an intense coaster. There's some great airtime on this ride. The theming around this coaster is really good. It is a little bit rougher than other B&M wing coasters, but it's not like rough as in, it's not like really rough, but it is a little bit rougher than, say, the Swarm at Thorpe Park or Raptor at Guardland or Gatekeeper. It is the roughest B&M wing coaster I've ridden. However, it is still my favourite, and it is definitely the most intense. So then guys, number 9 is Troy at Toverland. This is a GCI wooden coaster that opened in 2007. So of course Phoenix was my favourite ride at Toverland on my first visit. However, when I went to the park for the second time, I had a brilliant ride on this, and it was able to take the number 1 spot. So I've ridden Troy 4 times. I've ridden it twice in the back, and I've ridden it twice in the front. So overall, Troy is my favourite GCI wooden coaster. I've been on a few different GCIs. This is easily the best one. The airtime on this coaster is brilliant. Of course, it's a lot better in the back than in the front. My favourite seat on Troy is the back row. Either of the seats in the back row are brilliant. It's not the smoothest of coasters. It does have a little bit of a rattle to it. It is a little bit jolty, however, it's not too bad, and it's not the thing that you're focusing on the ride. This thing is absolutely relentless. It flies through the track. Of course, it does get a lot better throughout the day. So when I went to Toverland on my second visit, I rode it later on in the day, and it was pretty warm that day as well, and it was absolutely flying. Like, it's a brilliant ride at the beginning of the day, but if you wait a few hours after park opening, then if you're only going to get one ride on it, wait a few hours after opening, after the park opens, because the later on you ride it, the faster it feels, and it flies round, and the amount of airtime on this coaster is brilliant. It's so much better than Wicker Man at Holton Towers. It's not the best themed roller coaster ever. It's probably, of course, Toverland is a really well themed park, but this coaster isn't particularly well themed. It does have some nice landscaping around it, however, it's nowhere near as well themed as, say, Phoenix. Overall though, it's a brilliant roller coaster. I absolutely love it. It has a great length to it as well. The air time's brilliant. Not the smoothest, as I said. The restraints are pretty good as well. They're not my favourite restraints, but it's only a lap bar and the staff don't normally push too tightly on them as well. Overall, Troy is a very solid wooden coaster and I absolutely love it. So then guys, number 8 is Let Coaster at Legendia in Poland. This is a Vekoma Bermuda Blitz that opened in 2017 and unfortunately it is the world's only Bermuda Blitz at the moment. I wish there was more of these because this ride is fantastic. Everything you want from a coaster is in this coaster. So let's start off by talking about the restraints. It's a Vekoma vest restraint. The Vekoma vest restraints are a lot better than the B&M ones in my opinion. As well as that, the first drop is absolutely amazing, whips you through it. Now, this ride does have some really good airtime, and you would think, well, I'll choose the back seat then to get the best experience. However, my favourite seat on Let Coaster is the front row seats, because I prefer this coaster in the front to the back, and I don't know how, but the airtime feels better in the front than in the back. There's some really solid airtime points on this ride, lots of airtime, some 3 inversions on this as well, and it's pretty well themed as well. Really smooth roller coaster, whips you through all those transitions, absolutely relentless. It doesn't stop until it gets to the brake run. A lot of coasters like this will slow down towards the end. This one, it's still flying round until you get into that brake run. It just feels like it doesn't stop. Well, it doesn't. It feels like it's never going to stop. It just goes through, it flies through the layout. It's an incredible coaster. It's so underrated. One of the most underrated coasters in the world, in my opinion. I absolutely love this coaster. If you guys have not ridden it yet, I definitely recommend the trip out to Legendia. It is 100% worth it. So then guys, number 7 is El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. This is an Intamin prefabricated wooden coaster that opened in 2006. And this is, in my opinion, the best wooden coaster in the world. The amount of airtime on this coaster is insane. So this ride is made up of 2 sections really. So the first half, you have all the insane airtime hills where you get some incredible airtime, some of the best airtime you'll find on any roller coaster. And then the second half is more mini airtime hills, and towards the end there's like a twister section as well, so there's lots of S-bends and stuff towards the end of the coaster, and I really like that. S-bends are one of my favourite elements on roller coasters, and there's a few S-bends and turns and twists, and it's a really great coaster. Of course, this is one of those coasters that a lot of people talk about this coaster, and you may think, oh well, is it going to be overrated? In my opinion, it's not overrated. It deserves all the hype it gets. The airtime is incredible. As I said, some of the best airtime on any roller coaster in the world, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it does slow down a bit to the end. As you're going through that twist, at least, if there was like big airtime hills like at the start of the ride, then I don't think you'd get very solid airtime. However, as it's the end, as you get to the second half of the coaster, it stays quite low to the ground, so you don't need too much speed to get you through these elements. It does slow down, you can feel it slowing down a bit. However, that twister section is still really good fun, even though the coaster is going does feel like it is starting to lose its speed a bit. It is still an incredible roller coaster. It's worth all the hype it gets. It's one of my favourites that I've ever ridden, of course. If it's in my top 10. It's the best wooden coaster I've ever ridden. It really is fantastic. So then guys, number 6 is Maverick at Cedar Point, an Intamin Blitz coaster that opened in 2007. And where do I start with this coaster? This coaster is insane. It is relentless from start to finish. It's so fast. The way it goes through those elements, it whips through every single element. It's a very intense coaster. This is one of the most aggressive roller coasters I've ever ridden. In fact, it's probably the second most aggressive roller coaster I have ever ridden. This thing is incredible. It is incredible from start to finish. It doesn't lose its speed towards the end. You've got 2 launches on this. You've got the launch lift hill, a 95-degree drop. The airtime on this coaster is brilliant. The only downside to this coaster, in my opinion, is the other restraints. So with this coaster, of course, you're gonna need a pretty big restraint to hold you in, because if this was done with a T-bar, I mean, I don't think that would work with a T-bar. It has to have a pretty big restraint to keep you in, because this ride, it's an intense coaster. It's whipping you round. it's one of those out of control coasters. It's so aggressive. There's some brilliant airtime on it. There's only 2 inversions, 2 launches, as I said. It reaches a top speed of 70 miles per hour, and it is absolutely incredible. Some amazing elements on this coaster. I love this coaster. Absolutely stunning. So then guys, number 5 is Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure, and this is a B&M hypercoaster that's opened in 2001. So it is one of the older B&M hypercoasters. However, I think it is still a very solid coaster. It's my least favourite of the B&M coasters, the B&M hypercoasters that I've ridden. However, I still think it's a brilliant coaster. It's my favourite coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. The airtime on this coaster is pretty good. There's quite a lot of floater airtime. However, it's not the airtime hills that steal the show for me. With the airtime hills at the end produce some very good airtime. However, my favourite part of the ride is this helix that's on the ride, and that helix is very, very intense. It's one of the most intense elements I've ever experienced on a coaster. It's very intense. Other than that, it's a pretty short coaster. It's one of the shorter of the B&M hypercoasters. It is pretty short. It doesn't last for too long, but it is one of the first B&M hypercoasters, so of course it's clear to see that they have definitely got better with their hypercoasters. But overall, it's still a good coaster. I find it pretty underrated, to be honest. If you've not yet ridden Nitro, I definitely recommend it. I do really enjoy it. It has some really good airtime. So then guys, number 4 is Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. This is a B&M hypercoaster that's opened in 2016, and this is a really solid coaster for me. There's some brilliant floater airtime on it. Obviously this coaster is really about the floater airtime. It's located next to the water. You can get some amazing views of the rest of the park. It's got a really nice queue line as well. There's lots of fans in there, so when it's a hot day, then it's very nice to be in that queue with all the fans. It's got a little bit of a more indoor section as well, where you can see the coaster as well. The station's really nice. There's some cool lights in the ceiling in the station and some audio when the train's dispatched. Restraints are really nice as well. The restraints are nice on all the B&M hypercoasters because they're all the same. They're the clamshell restraints. The first drop is brilliant, and especially on the back row, this thing has some amazing floater airtime. Now, the one thing with this ride that I really don't like is the trim brake. There is a trim brake about halfway through the coaster, and I have to say, you can notice it, especially on the back row. On the back row, you can really notice it, and it really kills that momentum, because of course over that you would have got some incredible airtime going over that, but that trim brake really ruins the second half of the ride for me, and it is one of the most noticeable trims ever on a coaster. It does really kill the second half of the ride for me, but it's still a brilliant coaster. I still love it. It still has some brilliant airtime. Super smooth coaster as well. It is silky smooth. It's an incredible coaster. If you've not yet ridden it, I definitely recommend it. It is a fabulous roller coaster. So then guys, number 3 is Untamed at Wallaby Holland. This is an RMC hybrid coaster that's opened in 2019, and this is a mini Steel Vengeance. It literally is. The airtime on this coaster is brilliant. There's around 14 seconds of airtime on this coaster, and it's a brilliant mix of ejector airtime and floater airtime. It is mainly made up of ejector airtime. However, there are a couple points on there where you get some floater airtime as well. It's got more inversions than any RMC in the world, and it's got 5 inversions. And the first inversion, it's basically 2 inversions in one. That's a really good part of the ride. I really enjoy that. However, it's the airtime that really steals the show for me on this coaster. Now, we rode it at the beginning of the day, and it was incredible at the beginning of the day. However, if you ride it a few hours after park opening, oh my god, it absolutely flies. So of course, the airtime's good when you go on it at the beginning of the day, but it feels so much faster if you ride it later on in the day. It flies up into the brake run. It is relentless from start to finish. It's so fast. It keeps the pacing up throughout the entire coaster. It is a pretty short coaster. It's not as long as Steel Vengeance. It is a pretty short coaster. Most RMCs do have a pretty decent length to them, but this one is a pretty short one. However, this one doesn't need to be long. It does everything it needs to do. It fits a lot into a small layout. It's a brilliant coaster. Absolutely stunning. I absolutely love it. It's an incredible roller coaster. Number 2 is Shambhala at Portaventura. This is a B&M hypercoaster that opened in 2012, and this is my favourite B&M hypercoaster. Now, I haven't ridden this for a few years. My first ride on it was in 2014, and my most recent ride on it was 2015. So when I rode this, this was the tallest roller coaster in Europe. So as you go up the lift hill, you get some amazing views of the park if you look to the right, and if you look to the left, you get some views of the surrounding area of the park. The first drop is brilliant on this coaster, and the floater airtime on this coaster is absolutely incredible. There are so many airtime hills on this coaster, and you get some amazing airtime. The turnaround I really like as well, and there's some brilliant head choppers on this ride as well. As you go down the first drop into the tunnel, that's a brilliant head chopper, and there's also a really good head chopper on the turnaround as well. It's like a figure of 8 turnaround. It's really weird. After the turnaround as well, one of my favourite parts of the ride, there's an ejector airtime speed hill, and the airtime you get there is brilliant, and that's some of the only ejector airtime you're going to find on the ride. Most of it is floater airtime, however that ejector airtime there is absolutely brilliant. Decently long coaster as well, it's got a decent length to it. It is so much better than Mako. Mako is a fantastic coaster, however this one really is the best B&M hypercoaster in my opinion. Absolutely stunning, beautiful place in the park. You get some amazing views no matter which direction you look. Amazing airtime whether you're in the front or the back. There's nothing to complain about with this ride. It is everything you want from a roller coaster. So then guys, we have got to number 1, and my number 1 roller coaster is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point, an RMC hyper hybrid coaster that opened in 2018. And where do I start with this coaster? This thing is aggressive. It's extremely aggressive. Now with the restraints on this coaster, it does make it a little bit uncomfortable. It's a pretty bulky lap bar, so it does make the coaster a little bit uncomfortable. However, it's worth it for this coaster. This roller coaster has more airtime than any other roller coaster in the world, and it has around 28 seconds of airtime, which is absolutely insane. When this thing opened, it broke 10 world records and 5 records for the USA. It hasn't kept all those records now as RMC's gone and built more coasters. However, it still really is, in my opinion, the king of coasters. The airtime is amazing. You get a really good mix of floater airtime and ejector airtime, and there's some great parts of the ride where you go inside the structure as well, so you can't really see what's in there unless you're actually on the coaster. And there's some airtime hills in there, some inversions. It has 4 inversions, and this is almost, in my opinion, a perfect roller coaster. The only thing that will make this even better is if it was themed. Imagine this with Taran theming. This will be a perfect roller coaster if it had Taran theming. It's not very well themed at all though. There's very little theming. However, this is one of the only roller coasters that doesn't really need theming. It's an incredible roller coaster, amazing airtime, it's smooth. I got to ride it in the front and the back. I got lots of rides on this coaster. It's an incredible roller coaster, amazing airtime on it. If you've not yet experienced it, well, you need to get out to Cedar Point and ride this coaster. It is absolutely stunning. In my opinion, it is the king of coasters. And you may think, well, this coaster gets so much hype. Is it worth the hype? Yes. It is worth all the hype it gets. Absolutely stunning roller coaster. It literally is basically a perfect roller coaster. So then guys, that is now the end of this video here. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at George Kelly Rollercoasters, George William Kelly and George Kelly Animals. Message me on Snapchat at George Kelly, follow me on Twitter at George Kelly, and check out my other YouTube channel at Wealthy Eagle. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like, comment, share and subscribe. Stay safe everyone, and I will see you all later. Bye!